part of a multi-team Carmelo Anthony, Dennis Schroeder deal. Atlanta's Mike Muscala is heading to the Sixers. Timothy Luwawu-Cabarrot is going to go to Oklahoma City, and Justin Anderson is heading to Atlanta. Michael Kaskey-Blomain from 97.3 ESPN.com tweeted, "You're going to see a lot of Fultz, Smith, and Korkmaz for the season." You know, the way I see it, Michael, is they gave up 2 non-rotational players and added a guy that's going to help them out.
Yeah, that's it's basically what they did, Mike. It was kind of killing 2 birds with 1 stone. They kind of made up for, losing Nemanja. Filled in with him with a guy with a somewhat similar skill set, and they cleared out. They had too many players on the roster. TLC and Justin Anderson were guys that were going to be, at the bottom of the heap in terms of rotation. So they were able to clear out some space and, clearly put a little more emphasis on some of their younger guys. Justin Anderson wasn't going to have a real role on this team moving forward. TLC probably wasn't going to either. By getting those guys out of the way, it clears up more, more floor time for Zaire, Markel, and, Furkan.
Yeah, Bjelica backing out on them, certainly was a blow. This is a move to essentially fill that role, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. It seems like that's a move basically to almost directly address that. Once he backed out of the agreement, there was a pretty clear vacancy at the, backup power forward spot behind Dario, in terms of a guy that was capable of, both playing inside if he needed to and stretching the floor. It could, that could knock down some shots like Bjelica could do. So, you bring in Muscala, who's probably not quite as prolific as a shooter as Bjelica was, but he does, similar things. He shot a decent clip from the long distance last year.
37%.
37% on, and, I think it was like 162 attempts. So, he should be able to plug in, in that backup power forward role.
I mean, essentially, you would say that he is filling the Ersan role, right?
Yeah, pretty much.
Michael, moving forward here, they still got some decisions to make. You've got they got 2 of the guys out, but they had a lot of conversations about what's going to happen at the bottom of that roster. Now that summer league's over, Zaire Smith, he's definitively going to be here. How about Korkmaz? You think Korkmaz is a guy that's going to be – I saw you tweet a little while ago, about a half hour ago, that, you think Fultz, Smith, and Korkmaz are going to get a lot of run.
Yeah, I think especially now with these moves, I think it's a situation where you'll see him. I mean, he probably projects to be the third, small forward on the team. Obviously, Covington will start. You'll bring in Wilson Chandler off the bench. But Korkmaz is a guy, I think, especially after some of what he showed in Summer League this year with his ability to shoot and even, create off the dribble a little bit. I think he'll be that third forward that they'll look to get some minutes. I mean, nothing crazy. I'm not saying like 20 minutes a game or anything like that, but I think he'll get, maybe 12 minutes a game and sometimes bigger if he's shooting well. I think there'll definitely be, some opportunity for him this year.
And the other thing is Korkmaz, by the way, Muscala 37%, Ersan Ilyasova 36%, so slight upgrade there. Muscala hit 40% or more from three-point percentage twice in his career, and he's a lot younger. So, and the contract situation, here's something I want to discuss with you, Mike. You hear everybody complaining. They've had an awful offseason. It's been a disappointment, and it's all based on what Brett Brown said, right? I mean, he says we are star hunting. The way that I interpret this is essentially, look, we're going to be in the conversation for those guys, and if we don't get them, we are not going down the road of the 3, 4, 5-year deal with the Nick Youngs of the world and the Darrell Wrights of the world and the Kwame Browns of the world. So if we don't get the guys that everybody else wants, we're not going down the road of the mid-level guy anymore. So that era is behind us. Like, that's kind of how I read what he was saying there.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's a matter of them just wanting to keep flexibility open outside of, the big three, I guess you could say, of Joel, Ben, and Markel, by signing these guys, which is kind of the trend in the NBA in general, but these shorter-term deals and they're guys that fit in between those players. It maintains the flexibility. Obviously they wanted to get one of those big fish if the opportunity presented itself. It didn't. So, the kind of defaults back to a year of internal growth. I think we'll see, a lot of the young guys and these younger guys really get to step up this year and put the team on their back. They'll basically, the team will go as far as the young players take them this year. So I think it's definitely a matter of, it's going to be a situation where, the flexibility is going to stay open. They're still, quote unquote, star hunting, as Brett Brown put it. And they're also focusing on, since they missed out on, there was such a small pool of big name guys they wanted this year. LeBron, they never really got a chance at Paul George, and the asking price is just too high for Kawhi. So, they stand pat for now, maintain flexibility moving forward, and work on that. The second thing that Brett Brown said, which, you've pointed out on this show several times, the star developing aspect.
Yeah, that part of the comment seemingly has been lost somewhere in space up there. I'm looking around to see if anybody else actually heard it, or are they so stuck on the first part of that, which is, and look, Brett said it, we are star hunting, and he also said we need to add a high-level free agent to our program. I don't disagree with him, but, and I had this conversation with Sean Deviney from the Sporting News earlier, Michael, he agreed, and he said, look at Boston. They probably would have been more active this offseason on the trade market and or free agency for a guy like LeBron or the Kawhi Leonard deal. But nobody feels like they can beat the Warriors. So these teams are trying to really make their push for when the Warrior run is over, more so than 2018, 2019, because quite frankly, nobody believes that there's a move that can be made to beat the Warriors this year.
Yeah, that's the thing, Mike. As much as you'd like to believe that these teams think they have a chance, the people in the front offices are smart. They see what they have in Golden State, and that's why you don't see, some of these teams going all in on potential situations like that. And then in terms of that, the Sixers are set up where with Embiid and Simmons and Markelle, and if they keep that flexibility, if the Warriors start to, if Durant goes somewhere next summer or Clay in 2019, 2020, they'll still have these core pieces that will have this experience of leading this team into the playoffs on their own, and that flexibility will still be there. It's no rush in my mind, for the Sixers. It's not like, they needed to add LeBron or Paul George this summer, or else what are they going to do? No, I mean, they're still, the odds that I tweeted out earlier today, they have the fifth best odds to win the title this year. Now, obviously, they're not going to, no one expects them to beat the Warriors or even the Celtics, but they're still in that top five conversation right now after not having made any, a major splash in free agency. So I think their approach is, and I think the smart approach is, you stay pat with what you have, don't force anything, maintain flexibility, let these guys get another year of experience. They could very well be playing for the Eastern Conference Finals this year. And realistically, they probably weren't going to beat the Warriors, even if they had a Paul George this year, or if they got Kawhi in a trade and they had to give up Dario and,
right,
Markelle. So, it's a waiting game, definitely.
I agree with that, Michael. It essentially, and I get it. Like I said, the Warriors are both good and bad for basketball because they're good because I love the chase. I love the Goliath standing up there that when you win the championship, that you've taken down the best if you, in fact, knock the Warriors off. But the bad part is I have felt myself become a much more patient fan in that I don't really believe that the Sixers could win the championship, so if they don't go out and make this mega move, I'm not as disappointed as maybe somebody else might be who has that feeling of, hey, you play to win championships, and every year you have a chance. And I think that the organizations realistically understand we cannot win a championship every year, and if we do something that will hinder us from winning it when we're ready, then we'll look back and say, what the hell were we thinking?
I think that's a line of thought that comes all the way back, from when Sam was here, basically maintaining that flexibility. And you're absolutely right. They wanted, if they had gone, let's say, on, someone like a Jabari Parker or something else and sunk, double-digit 15, 20 million into a player a couple years into a contract, and then down the line you want to do something and you're stuck with a guy on a deal, that's not an ideal situation. You're already in a great position in terms of your own conference. And, you might as well maintain that flexibility. And I think that's definitely what they did.
Yeah, I mean, you're in a situation where, okay, let's say they went out and gave a contract, let me see a deal here that kind of stands out that, all right, a 4-year deal that Will Barton got for $54 million. They're basically saying, we're star hunting. We are not signing Will Barton for 4 years and $54 million just to say, yes, will they be better with Will Barton? Sure. But now you're stuck with Will Barton for 4 years and $54 million, which hinders your ability to go after what they said, the stars.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't even think that was on their mind, and it's something that I really didn't even consider expect. I didn't think that you would see 3-4 year deals this summer, unless it was a guy of the magnitude of maybe a LeBron or a Paul George. I don't think that's just the way that the team currently is. There's no reason to invest money into a guy that could give you 5 more regular season wins, maybe help you in the playoffs, but it's not going to get you over that hump. The Sixers have so much in place. I think that's kind of what Brett was getting at. Like, the Sixers are very comfortable with where they are right now. They're not desperate to do anything. If they're going to truly contend, on a level that no one's competing with Golden State right now. They want to really get to a championship level in a year or two. Sure, add one big name free agent. I think that's what Brett was saying, and people kind of just took it and ran with it. And then this summer, make or break, they got to get a guy or it's a failure.
No doubt. If you sign Kyle Anderson to a 4-year, $37 million deal, and at the end of that deal, you're like, man, I'm still stuck with Kyle Anderson, and we haven't done anything. Ersan, God bless him, got a 3-year, $21 million deal. When he's 34 years old at the end of that deal, you're still stuck with Ersan if you're Milwaukee, which means they're going to have problems adding to Antetokounmpo. I mean, those are kind of moves that this team made in the past that got them stuck in the middle where, I always use the example of Nick Young and Darrell Wright and Kwame Brown and them saying, we're trying. And I say that's a slap in my face as a fan for you to tell me that Kwame Brown, Darrell Wright, and Nick Young is your way of telling me that you are trying to win basketball games. I'd rather you just lose.
And that's basically what happened after so many years of that exact approach. After Iverson left, of we're trying results in 40 and 42 seasons, 8 seeds, 9 seeds, 7 seeds, and first round exits. And that's we've seen that before. And I think Brett continuing from Sam, and luckily when Brian was here too, he maintained that vision of long term flexibility. None of those guys want to saddle the organization with something like that. Especially things change in the NBA so rapidly today. I saw something today that, half of the guys in the 2017 All-Star game, literally like 12 of the 24 are on a different team right now than they were, just a year ago. And things change so quickly. At this point, it's just, you have your stars in place. You get those guys locked up. You have Embiid locked up. You obviously extend Ben when the time comes and his time for the rookie scale adjustment comes in. You do that. And otherwise, you do the 1-year deals and maintain flexibility. I think, I really think that short of, other than landing a LeBron or Paul George or a Kawhi without having to gut the roster, I think the Sixers handled this offseason, very well. And I'm excited to see them run it back with a year of experience.
Yeah, and I think another, interesting, thought on this whole thing is you have a situation with where the league is, where you have this Warriors team and nobody's beaten them for the next couple of seasons, probably 2, maybe 3 more years, that you need to be in position to be the team that takes them down. It's kind of like when the Pistons kept knocking the Bulls out. The Bulls didn't do anything crazy. They just kept developing that roster until they were finally ready to take the Pistons out. And then, boom, when that Pistons Bad Boys team kind of crumbled, the Bulls were ready to take them over. The Sixers continuing to be a 50-win team, maybe winning 2, getting to the Eastern Conference Finals, that is developing.
Absolutely, Mike. I think it almost feels like now all of a sudden everyone wants immediate gratification. Like they were patient enough during the process, and they thought that by giving some patience that would result in an immediate championship. As soon as the team tried to start to compete, and that's just not the reality. The Bulls are a great example. Shaq and Kobe got together on the Lakers in '96. They didn't win a title till 2000, and that we're talking about 2 of the 10 best players of all time on the same team. It just takes time, and there's other things, especially when there's already a juggernaut established like the Warriors. It's just not something that's going to happen overnight, and especially
the thought, Michael, that you lost for 3 years. We get it. That was very painful and very frustrating to everybody, but that in the first year and second year of some of these kids' careers, that now they have to instantly win. LeBron James didn't get to the finals for 5 years. Paul Pierce took 10 years to get to a finals. Steph Curry didn't get to a finals for 6 seasons. People are not taking that into account. It's like, oh, you have Simmons and Embiid. Now you need to get to a championship immediately. It's just outrageous.
Nah, Mike, I think we're honestly on the exact same page. That it is frustrating, and I try to preach patience in the situation of people I talk to. I mean, last year we've said it over and over again. Literally Ben's first year. I say Joel's his second year, but basically an extension of his rookie year. He played 31 games. The first year that they played together, the first year that Brett Brown was tasked with actually trying to win, it was a big test for him, and I thought he obviously performed very well. Dario's second year, Markel's first year, that obviously didn't go well, but it was such a just the first year of so many things, and I think there's something potentially really special in the locker room right now, even without adding an outside free agent. Sure, an outside free agent will come and potentially put them over the top, and when it's not something to not go after, but I think there's a lot of potential in that team as it is already, and like you said, it's just going to take more than one season for that to happen.
And to be fair, look, they have a lot of cap space next year. It doesn't guarantee anybody's coming here. They got to figure out a way to sell their story, right? I mean, they're running out of time. If they strike out again next year, you're really going to start to hear it from the other side.
I don't even think it was a matter of people not wanting to come here. I saw that on Twitter. Obviously, LeBron decided on Los Angeles over Philadelphia for a multitude of reasons, and I don't think a lot of people actually expected him to come here anyway. The Kawhi Leonard situation was a result of the Sixers just simply valuing their own assets, which is a good sign. I think if you're a Sixers fan that they have that much faith in, obviously, Joel and Ben, they weren't going to give up, and Markel, I think that's a great sign. And Paul George stayed where he was. I think the fact of them missing out on these free agents is almost overblown. It's not like they were, really Nemanja Bjelica is the only player that rebuked the team by kind of backing out and potentially going to sign in Sacramento. So, yeah, I think it would have been great to get one of those guys, but I didn't necessarily expect it. And next summer obviously becomes important, and I think, assuming that things go as, according to, plan, we'll say this year, the team continues to develop on what they did last year, get back to the playoffs, compete for potentially an Eastern Conference title. I see no reason why they should have difficulty getting, meetings and landing some of the guys that will be hitting the market next summer.
All right, he's at The Real Mike KB on Twitter. Give him a follow there. The Sixers make a trade as part of the Carmelo Anthony deal. They end up with a new piece. For more details, go to 973ESPN.com. Thanks, Mike.
Thanks, Mike. Good talking to you.